Two of my boys really, just really talking about football and everything around football, and I'm going to try and not moan. I have promised you guys I will not moan. I am an Arsenal fan, so it kind of naturally comes out. But I'm here with my boy Stel. Say hello to the people, Stel.
Hello, people, Stel.
And you got Robbie Richmond, who I've briefed everybody about. So do say hello, Robbie.
Hello, you've briefed everybody about me.
I briefed it, yeah, because they're wondering how do I meet you. I have to say really quietly. So I know these two.
Oh, I'm with you.
Wrestling circles.
Right. Yeah, okay. Well, that's proper stuff, isn't it? Come on.
People would naturally think I'm pathetic anyway, so I might as well just say it. So I basically brought you guys on really just to talk about the transfer window. I don't want to start off with Arsenal because I will sit here and moan and moan and moan. So I want to try and start off somewhat positively and talk to you guys about what you think about your clubs and what they've done. So as I kind of spoke to Stel last time, I'm going to start with you, Robbie. What do you think about Liverpool and their transfer business so far?
By and large, really happy. They've gone out and, with the exception of not going out and finding a left back, and with the exception of not getting players off the books, they've done all right. From the bits and pieces that I've seen from the pre-season, this goalie Loris Karius, who is so dreamy to look at.
Oh yeah,
he's a beautiful man. He's been playing really, really high up the field. Like against Wigan, he was literally stood on the halfway line, knocking the ball about. Now that sounds like a recipe for disaster in the grand scheme of things in the Premiership. But he's got something about him, and he's definitely a ball-playing goalkeeper, and that's something that we've desperately needed for quite some time. Even the late days of Pepe Reina, that you could tell that it was a bit ponderous and a bit laborious, and even Mick McCarthy's teams have been able to put him under pressure, and he goes, well, stuff it, we'll just pump it down the field and we give possession away. So pleased that we seem to have potentially sorted out the goalie issue. Mignolet, nightmare.
So
we all know that.
For my fantasy football team, for really selfish reasons, I'm trying to look for a goalkeeper, and I've noticed that new one you just mentioned is really cheap. Is he looking like going to be your number one?
Yeah, very much so.
Oh, okay.
Very much so.
Cool.
It certainly looks that way at the moment. I'd be very, very surprised if it goes differently, let's put it that way.
Okay.
The big fella, Joel Matip, is a bit of a lad, isn't he? Have you seen him before, Stel? Matip or even Karius?
I don't know much about either of them, to be honest. Karius, the only thing I've seen about him was that mistake that almost led to a goal. But if you're telling me that he's a ball-playing goalkeeper, that is precisely what you need.
Yeah.
And to be fair, that's what the evolution of goalkeepers have gone hand in hand with the evolution of footballers in general.
Yeah,
goalkeepers these days need to be more than just shot stoppers.
Yeah.
It's good to have a goalkeeper that can keep clean sheets, great. But what about distribution? What about when he gathers a ball from a set piece? How quick is he going to release it? Is he accurate with his passing? Is he good at distributing? Peter Schmeichel is a perfect example.
Exactly what I was going to say to you there, Stel. He's unquestionably the best goalie I've ever seen, purely for the fact that he could play football, properly play football.
Yeah.
But the thing is, his kicking wasn't perfect though, Rob. That's the thing. I mean, to be honest, I'm going to say this now. Remember Paul Robinson at Spurs and Leeds?
I do.
His goalkeeping was immense. His distribution from kicking was fantastic. But in terms of throwing the ball, Peter Schmeichel, he came from that handball background, didn't he?
Yeah.
But yeah, if you have a goalkeeper that's good at kicking, then you're 50% there in terms of distribution. Because as I said, when you're playing, and especially if he's going to be playing the balls into the channels, I don't think you're going to be playing long balls. You're going to be playing balls wide. Firmino and Coutinho are making those diagonal runs anyway with the ball. So like I said, you need the goalkeeper distribution. But with this Matip, I've heard good things about him. Don't know too much about him, but is he there as a stopgap, or is he there because Klopp rates him? I don't know, but you probably know it better than I do.
It seems as though Klopp rates him. He was in the Bundesliga Team of the Year. He's about 6'3", 6'4". Listen,
how much did he cost, Rob?
How much did he cost? Nothing. We got him on a free.
Well, there you go.
In the grand scheme of things, he actually looks like he could be a bit of a player, whereas for the last, 8-9 years we've had Martin Skirtle that plays a hard man on TV. And he looks like he's got some physicality to him, even though one of the first things that was said was that, you know, he needs to get in the gym and get on the stakes. But, yeah, there's always that holding position where you can't really judge or assess a player until Christmas, really, in my opinion. But he looks like he's got something about him. He's got distribution. One of the big problems that Liverpool have had is, as everybody knows, set pieces from a defensive point of view. But from a offensive point of view, we've scored barely any goals from corners, from set pieces in general, and they fancy that he gets a few headers. You know, he's got something about him. He's got some presence, which is something that we've desperately been lacking, really.
But you see, the thing is, I mean, as I said, because I don't really know too much about him, I'm thinking, has he come in because of Sacco's issues? With
No, he was
testing, or is it for Toure?
No, they brought Matip in. During January. He was signed up as a free agent in January. There was even talk, if you recall, we had that bad injury crisis. There was talk that they were going to offer £4 or £5 million and bring him in early.
Right.
And they went with Stephen Corker instead. It's funny when you think back to Brendan Rodgers and some of those hilarious. Even I found them hilarious. Things that he'd say in press talks, press conferences and things like that. And everybody took them so literally, particularly Liverpool fans, which I found really, really funny. And he'd say things about character. Well, by and large, what Klopp has gone and done is he's gone and bought players that are very durable, will be likely to be able to play 40-plus games and not get injured. But also players like Ragnar Klavan, even Gio Wijnaldum, and Matip, who are all strong characters, have been captains, authoritative voices on the pitch. If you can think back, Stel, to the last time that I appeared on Shoot the Defence with you, when we finished recording, I said to you I had a horrible feeling about the cup final against Seville. And I couldn't quite put my finger on it. And it wasn't until after the game and it all happened that I realised exactly what it was. And it all comes back to what Brendan Rodgers talked about specifically over and over again. Character. This idea of taking responsibility. And there were an awful lot of big Liverpool players that just didn't show up. Now, there are a myriad of reasons behind that, but one way to solve it is by introducing new players with the right attitude that buy into what Klopp wants from day one, rather than this nice little 8-month period that he had to try and find his feet and all that kind of stuff. They're going to come in. Obviously they're in America right now, and there's all sorts of reports going on with Sacco. Has he been sent home for misbehaving? Is it just to do with his Achilles? Nobody really seems to know at the moment. But Klopp is not going to suffer fools, and that in itself is, in my opinion, fantastic. Simply because we've got a real sure hand at the top of the club. In my opinion,
so what do you make of Wijnaldum, Robbie? What do you make of Wijnaldum? Because I think he's a fantastic
Stel, I don't know if you'll remember this, Stel, but I sent you a tweet on the first day of the season that I would be very, very surprised if he was still at Newcastle at the end of the season. Yeah. And I think he will be a good player for Liverpool. He's scored 11 goals. We know that they were almost all at home, and 4 of them were against Norwich. But that's also in a team that were horrendously poor in terms of, for want of a better phrase, horrendously poor in character. Again, I don't want to use this character word over and over, but I can't help myself. He's got something about him, and I'd like to think that give him more opportunities in this evolving Liverpool team that are going to make chances. We saw that post-Christmas, they made a lot of chances. I would play him at home a lot of the time and get goals, because we still have this horrible issue. We scored a lot of goals post-Christmas, curiously, when Sturridge came back to form, obviously, and from injury. But it can still be a very anxious place at Anfield if we can't get a goal after the first. If it's 0-0 at half time, second half it's an incredibly anxious building still. He's got it. He's a durable guy. I think in many ways I would describe him kind of like Suarez and kind of like Modric. Not in the style of play that they are, but in terms of Wijnaldum is one of these players that everybody in Europe knows about and nobody was really willing to take a bit of a punt on. Same with Modric at first. When he first arrived at Spurs, everyone went, oh, he's a bit small, wasn't he? Proved him wrong brilliantly. And Suarez, we all know, is mad as a badger. He's just a mad badger, that kid. He's just mad as a bag of spoons.
Do you guys need him, though?
Sorry, say that again?
Do you feel you need him, though?
Who?
Wijnaldum.
Definitely, yeah, because there's just Liverpool's primary issues for the last 2 or 3 seasons since we lost Suarez have been a fundamental lack of goals and a fundamental lack of pace up front, or even in the middle of the park. They've been spectacularly one-paced. Wijnaldum's quick. Sadio Mane's very quick. Firmino is quick-ish.
Who are your attacking midfielders then? Because, like you say, you've mentioned a lot of attacking midfielders.
I would imagine.
Not to mention you have Lallana as well.
Absolutely, and we know that Klopp likes him. I would imagine that I would expect to see Chan and Henderson in the middle of the park, or Chan and Milner, and then a front 3 of Firmino, Coutinho, and Mane away from home with Sturridge up front. And at home, I think you might see a bit of change in that. You might take Firmino out and bring in Wijnaldum. You might see Liverpool playing more 4-3-3 this season.
That's what I was about to say.
Yeah.
Which I think is probably the way forward. I understand why Klopp likes 2-3-1, but I don't think you necessarily need that, particularly, as I said, in the home games where people are just going to park the bus. I think you need more opportunities and more ways to try and break sides down. And that means better movement from Wijnaldum and Mane, quicker tempo hopefully will work. And to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if he flogs somebody like Wijnaldum and Firmino into the ground, stops picking them just after Christmas, and brings somebody else in and lets them have a bit of a rest and bring them back late in the season. We do have a bit more variety in the squad. I say that hoping and praying that we can get rid of some of these players. We still have a very big squad with guys that just obviously are not going to get any football.
Speaking of which, do you think...
Well, you can see he's getting rid of them, though, isn't he?
Yeah.
Do you see Benteke being one of them?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's only a matter of time.
Don't rate him at all whatsoever.
I rate him as a footballer. I think he's an excellent footballer, and I can see... It's a classic Liverpool trait that we go out and buy players that were really, really good against us. And Benteke had 3 or 4 excellent games against Liverpool. It's 30 million for a plan B is an awful risk. But again, that all goes back to the argument that after we lost to Stoke, we should have sacked Rodgers there and then, to be honest with you. To trust him again in the market, this is why things have gone horribly pear-shaped.
But you know what? But with the greatest respect, I don't think signing Benteke was actually a gamble at the time, because if you think about it in a logical way, which strikers were available at the time in the Premier League that were going to guarantee you goals?
No, that's valid.
Harry Kane had a good season. Aguero, you weren't going to get. So who was available at the time? Benteke was in a team that got relegated. He scored 12, 13 goals that season, which weren't bad for a guy that's for a team that's got relegated. So I can see the logic. And to be honest, if he didn't have that release clause, you'd have to pay more for him. So I can see why he was signed.
I'm with you, Stel. I know where you're coming from. It's just. It was obviously quite apparent from day one when they signed him that he was never going to be Plan A. He was always going to be Plan B. And even when they gave him a good run of games to begin with. And again, this is this horrible juncture where Brendan Rodgers was like, "Whatever we do, don't lose."
Yeah, but I know what you mean, Rob. But at the end of the day, right, when you guys almost won the title with Suarez up front, right? One of the reasons why, there are 2 main reasons why I think you didn't win the league. First of all, you conceded about 40-odd goals, and secondly, you didn't have a plan B up front. If you had someone like Andy Carroll, You probably wouldn't have thrown away a 3-goal lead against Crystal Palace. You probably wouldn't have struggled to beat Chelsea and end up losing 2-0.
Yeah.
You never know these things, but that's hindsight.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful
Hindsight's 20/20, isn't it?
But,
Let's be honest.
Exactly. But what I'm saying is that at that moment in time when Benteke was signed, I think it made perfect sense. The thing is that perhaps someone like Daniel Sturridge knew that he was comfortable in that position because of how well that he was doing. So, and let's be 100% honest. Let's be 100% honest, Rob, right? Liverpool are a big club, regardless of what anyone says about them not winning the league for how many years. They are still a big club, right? And when you have footballers that go to certain clubs, it's the pressure, it's the expectancy.
Oh,
and
yeah, absolutely.
They crumble.
I agree.
As I said, regardless of...
I couldn't agree with you more, Stel. There's so many, like Gordon Bennett. There's so many players that have come to Liverpool and gone, I can't handle the fact that I have to win every week.
Exactly.
You know, look at your man that's gone back to Middlesbrough. What's he called? The guy that was at Villa. What was he called? The winger.
Downing.
Downing couldn't handle it. Adam couldn't handle it. Henderson has just about got his head around it. And it's the same. Obviously, it's the same at Arsenal. It's the same at Manchester United. It used to be that way back in the 80s. It used to be that way at Everton. Everton used to sign so many players that would just choke, couldn't handle the pressure of it. So that's a very valid point.
Here's one, Rob. Gary Birtles.
Normally my favourite example. Him and our mate Alan Brazil.
Alan Brazil, yeah.
That's a blast from the past. People are now googling.
Exactly.
Who's Gary Birtles?
Who are these people? Who is Gary Birtles?
Who's that? Who's that?
Forest fans are laughing right now, aren't they?
Yeah. God bless them.
So, where would you like to see Liverpool strengthen more? Because you
left back.
Quite a lot of people in.
Left back, mate. Left back, big time. Left back, big time. It's not that I don't like Albi Moreno, but the fact of the matter is the guy's 5'5", genuinely 5'5".
What about Gibbs?
He's really quick. But he's one of these guys that's just he's constantly, you're in fear of him having a brain fart all the time. It's basically the same way that Stel feels about Smalling, yeah?
Really does not like Smalling.
So yeah, left back, I'd like us to sign some, we don't know what's going to happen with Joe Gomez. Joe Gomez looked absolutely like the Vickers Knickers in the first 6 weeks of the season. Slotted in magnificently.
Yeah.
We don't know what's going to happen. I know they've been talking about Jeffro Willems from PSV, who I believe has the same agent as Wijnaldum. That's a bit of a strange one, isn't it, boys? Flipping out.
Okay.
But again, he's not a big guy. Willems is a tidy player. I've watched him 2 or 3 times. I thought, yeah, he's got something about him, but he's not the biggest. He's not the biggest guy in the world. I don't know if it's worth having a punt on someone like Daryl Janmaat from Newcastle.
Oh yeah,
he's a guy that nobody's mentioned. There's a lot of love for Aaron Cresswell at West Ham because he's a good Scouser, but he is a good fullback. And
I rate him
his delivery is excellent. I believe. I think he's actually got a quality left foot, which is again something that Liverpool's delivery from set pieces has been pitiful.
What about a certain Kieran Gibbs?
Yeah, he's been mentioned in dispatches in the past. He has been mentioned in the past.
I don't think he's intelligent enough.
No, I think that's
tactically inept. No, I'm not taking a mic. I'm just saying. I think he's fullback. I don't think he's intelligent. He marauds forward too much. He doesn't track back enough. Gets caught out of position a lot. Yeah. I don't think he's the kind of player that you need. And to be fair, Jurgen Klopp likes workers.
This is it, Stel. If we brought somebody like Gibbs in, he would be a squad man. I don't think he'd be a starter. I'd be very surprised if he was a starter.
I'm surprised you haven't been linked with that Wolfsburg left back. That Rodriguez guy.
Rodriguez.
Yeah, he has been. Again, another one that's been mentioned. We flirted with the lad that's re-signed at Clon, FC Con. What was he called? Hector, who looks. I watched him during the European Championships. You just went, yeah, that's a Jurgen Klopp player. That's the kind of player that Jurgen wants. He can play. He gets forward. He runs back. He's just perpetual motion. I was really impressed with Hector. I was a bit annoyed that we didn't get in there early and get him signed. So we've missed out on that one, in my opinion. But that's what we need. We need someone that's got high energy, great work rate, good temperament, good attitude, and preferably can defend.
Yeah.
And preferably can also take set pieces. Hard to find, and again, hard to find. That's what worries me.
The thing is, Rob, the thing is, Rob, like when Klopp came in, everyone was saying, oh, he's gonna bring in the gegenpressing methods that he had at Dortmund, and he did it for the first few weeks. You know, against Chelsea, you guys were constantly chasing the ball down, but I think Klopp has actually realised that the Premier League is just that little bit faster than the Bundesliga.
This is
you can't tell in certain games, but you can tell in the big ones. And the thing is,
absolutely,
he's probably sitting there thinking, right, hang about. I can't do this week in, week out with these guys because I'm going to run them down to the ground and they're going to get knackered by Christmas. So
I agree with you completely.
This is Martin's opinion.
Yeah.
This is what I think he'll do, Rob. I think the beginning of the season, he'll go full pelt with gegenpressing until Christmas. And then he'll lay off, he'll take the foot off the gas because that's when you can gauge it. That's where you can gauge it.
Right. That's, again, and when you look at as a whole at the players that he's signed, you go, that's what he's kind of done. I do think that bringing him in has given him a bit of a leg up over Conte and Gladiola, as my dad likes to call him. Although my dad's ridiculous, by the way, boys. My dad cannot remember anybody's names, and they're like Tevez is Trevez, Benteke's called Bicycletti or something like that.
Write them down. Write them down.
Oh, he can't read. He's got learning difficulties. He can't read it.
Anyway, you write them down.
No, I can't even read my own writing.
Nah, man, write them down and just jot them down for you in the future. Man. Trust me, my dad's done. My dad's outlandish stuff, man. I'll tell you about the stuff my dad's. He's changed song names and changed. I'm not even going into that. So that's for another show. Trust me.
Oh dear. But yeah, look. By and large, I see exactly where you're coming from. I think that Conte and Guardiola will have like a betting in season maybe. Do you know what? Just segueing over to Manchester City, that's a really interesting situation because, again, when you look at it, they haven't released anything. In terms of players leaving the club, there's not really been anything.
I'm a bit surprised Bonnie hasn't gone. Like,
true.
As soon as the season ended, quite frankly, he didn't do all for them.
Just clean out your locker and off you go, mate. You know, again, a good player. Stel, you probably know about this more than me. Is Wilfried Bonny an example of Manchester City buying a player to stop him going somewhere else?
I don't think so because the price that Swansea wanted for him, no one was going to pay for it. I personally think that they were running out of ideas up front. They had Dzeko, they had Jovetic, they had Aguero, and at the time, I think Dzeko was misfiring. I think Jovetic was injured. And then they brought in Bonny. I just think that it was just desperate measures for City at the time. I think that's my honest opinion. Who won the title that season? Was it Chelsea that won it? Chelsea won it, didn't they?
I think they did, yeah. But it was quite interesting because you know they got the boy Ignacio coming through, and I thought, well, you've just spent 30 million on Wilfried Bonny. You've got this lad that's going to be coming through sometime in the next 18 to 24 months. Why? You know?
Yeah, but you know what? I think
was he ready at the time? I don't know.
You know. Exactly. If he plays it, I mean, he's still raw. Don't forget, he's a good player though. He's
very raw. Yeah,
but I'll say that.
I think he's got a huge amount of ability, and I think by and large he will save them a lot of money in the future. Depends though. Does Guardiola like him? Is Guardiola going to want that kind of player? You know, that's another thing. Like, you know, your man Torre's still at the club. It's not gone to. I was expecting him to be on the first flight to Turkey, you know, but
he's already said that he plans to see out his contract there.
Really?
But let me put it to you. Do you think he's gone there and thought to himself, you know what? Let me consolidate a little bit what I have. Let me really do an assessment, and then maybe plug some gaps here and there where I see them. Because for me, I think one of their major problems is central defence. I know they spent a lot of money there, but what do you do with some of them central defenders that they have?
Do you know what? I tweeted again. I think I tweeted this to you, Stel. I definitely tweeted it out to somebody. Your man Boateng's had a pretty spectacular European Championship. I thought he played pretty damn well. Obviously, City bought him in 2011 for something like 12 million. He stayed there one season and went to Bayern Munich. And in the meantime, they've spent something like £130 million on central defenders, and they're lining up Stones for another 50, which brings them near to £2 million on central defenders. And I just want to read you this quote from Guardiola today. He said, Guardiola used midfielders like Javier Mascherano and Javi Martinez as central defenders whilst managing Barcelona and Bayern Munich, respectively. And the Spaniard has identified a City midfielder who could step into the back four. Yeah. Fernandinho can play 10 positions. He's quick, fast, intelligent, aggressive. He is strong in the air and has the quality to play good build-up. He can go left, right, or
is it Fernandinho or Fernando?
No, Fernandinho.
It's Fernandinho. Now, this guy's like 5'8", 5'9", isn't he?
Yeah, he's not the bigger. So, the other one's a bit of a unit.
Fernando's the bigger one. Yes, yeah. I thought it was talking about him, but no. Listen, what he's doing
brave,
is the exact. What he's doing. He's basically trying to tell the world that he's got a versatile squad, and he's going to play players in certain, like he did at Bayern Munich. He moved Alaba into central midfield. He did it with Lam for a bit. He likes to do that, like as you mentioned with Mascherano and Javier Martinez. But again, he could afford to do it because it's Bayern Munich and Barcelona. You can't mess about in the Premier League, mate. He's going to learn. Completely. He's going to learn the hard way. He is, trust me.
Exactly.
Really is.
And that's why I brought it up. It comes back to what I was saying before, that Guardiola and maybe even Conte are going to have quite a learning on the job, learning the hard way. I mean, it's not that I don't rate Fernandinho. I look back at that game against Liverpool in the cup. What's it called? We used to call it the Milk Cup. We don't call it that anymore.
Capital One Cup.
And he played Fernandinho as a right winger, and it's the most defensive that I'd ever seen. Oh God, what was he called? I forgot his name.
Pellegrini.
Pellegrini, thank you, buddy. It was the most offensive I'd seen Pellegrini at all whilst at City. And then the next thing I know, there's been some sort of cultural shift, attitude shift, and he started doing it in Europe, and it got them to the semi-finals. Played that one game as a right back, and he absolutely was a right winger, and he absolutely destroyed Albi Moreno. Destroyed him. Absolutely destroyed him. Terrible. Brilliant play from Fernando.
Moreno didn't have the greatest start to Liverpool career, did he? I mean,
he
played he had a nightmare actually against City on his debut, wasn't it?
It was, yeah, that's correct.
A nightmare against City on his debut.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one, mate. Listen, at the end of the day, the thing with Albi Moreno, like, apparently he had a lot of problems with the language barrier.
Well, listen, that's a bit asinine, to be honest, because there's other Spanish players that come. Listen,
I agree. Yeah,
it goes back to tactical intelligence. Okay, listen, every position is difficult, right? But if you're a fullback and you don't have that much pace, you need to have a brain at least, because you get torn apart. If you've got a right, let's say for example someone like Jesus Navas, right, predominantly right-footed. You're gonna want him to cut inside, because you don't want him going on the outside. He'll take you apart, and he'll deliver a ball. That's why you bring him inside, show him on his left foot, show him on his weaker foot. But Moreno doesn't have that intelligence in him. Hence the reason why he makes too many mistakes. Yeah, he's good at bombing forward, and he's very aesthetically pleasing on the eye. But bottom line is, he's not good enough at a left back. Same with Enrique, the other left back that you had. Tactically inept. Honestly, I don't understand who does your scouting for fullbacks.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you all the way on that one. Like I said, it's an issue. It's always an issue where they've gone. Yeah, what was it? Somebody said to me the other day, Liverpool haven't had a decent left back since Jamie Carragher, and he wasn't a left back.
Right.
Right. And the last time that Jamie Carragher played left back for Liverpool was 2001. So it's a 15-year problem.
Right. And who was the left back before him? Stig Inge Bjornaby, wasn't it?
Yeah. We had Risa.
You didn't like Risa? You didn't like John?
No. Exactly the same thing as Albi Moreno. Not tactically, not the smartest tool in the shed. Bomb forward. Lived on one goal.
Yeah,
it really was a cracking goal, let's be fair. But literally lived on 2 or 3 outstanding performances, surrounded by 300 plus, below par performances. 5 out of 10, 6 out of 10. Not good enough for Liverpool. Not good enough for anybody, really.
But do you not feel like you need a striker to help Sturridge?
No. Danny Ings, they're very hot on Danny Ings. They like Danny Ings a lot. They want to play Firmino as a forward more.
Okay.
And obviously, up until Mane can play up front as well, and up until he got injured, which was quite frankly disastrous. The Belgian lad whose name's currently escaping me. Origi.
Yeah.
Was running the channels. He was actually starting ahead of Sturridge, and again would be somebody that you would say is a Klopp-style player. And Origi's an interesting one because he looked absolutely bereft of any confidence when Klopp arrived. He got an injury, and when he came back, he'd put on about a stone in weight, pure muscle, and all of a sudden was beast mode quite often. Against very, very, admittedly, again, we come back to the physicality of the Premiership. It's not just that it's 100 miles an hour. It is a physical league. And all of a sudden, Origi looked bang tidy, to use a bit of a Welsh colloquialism. But, so I'm not too sure if obviously we're going to get rid of Balotelli somehow. Benteke's going to go. And I think that he's going to try and, utilise... Not false nines, really, are they? I mean, I wouldn't call Mane a false nine. I would, and I wouldn't really call they've played Firmino as a false nine. Worked against City in the league, worked against Spurs in the league, but by and large, I think they're going to try and hope Sturridge is going to be the man. Alongside
Robbie. I think they'll use Mane.
Yeah.
I think they'll use Mane in the similar vein to Royce at Dortmund. Wide right, counter attack. He's quick. Let's be honest. He'll rip most defenders to shreds.
Exactly.
I
see.
Listen, Klopp knows what he's doing. Klopp knows
absolutely.
Exactly what
he's doing.
He's been planning for months.
I agree. I think you'll probably see Mane play away from home a lot more than you'll see him playing at Anfield. I think you'll see him. That kind of way. So, listen, we've talked a lot about Liverpool. Let's move on. Can we talk about Everton? Because they're hilarious.
Let's talk about Everton. Let's do it.
Stones, 50 million.
And he's going. He
absolutely. I've been. My barbers back home here down in Bath. One Evertonian and two Gooners, and I love to wind them up because basically I'm a bell end. But I have been telling the lads since last Christmas that he will not come down south. It will definitely be one of the Manchester clubs. There's no way that he was going to come all the way to Chelsea when Mr. Terry is still there, and the likelihood of him starting seems questionable to say the least. I still think he would walk directly into the United team. Although I don't really think Jose fancies him. Does he fancy him, Stel? Could they gazump this, or are they just focusing on Pogba?
It's difficult to say at the moment because we spent £30 million on Eric Bailly, which I don't think... As far as I've been made aware, United asked Everton last season to keep them aware of any transfer negotiations with other clubs to keep them in the loop. But I think they've just balked at the fee. I mean, £50 million for a player. Okay. I can say that he isn't a £30 million player, but at least he's got a couple of years' experience and he's played in Europe. I don't know. As good as a player John Stones is, for me, he's very naive, and it's the age thing. He's still raw, don't forget. But is City the right move for him? I mean, I don't think. Yeah, I've never known a Guardiola side to be astute defensively. I've never seen. You know what I mean? So it's difficult to gauge. It really is. Yeah. But listen, they've got a fantastic academy. They've got the right infrastructure. Man City. And any player that goes there has probably got more chance of developing than at United. To be fair, that's my opinion anyway.
It's funny, see, because on paper, Stones and company are a smart match, in my opinion, at least. That
but you're not going to get 40 odd games of company a season, are you?
No, you're not. You really, really are not. That would worry me greatly. That would really, really worry me greatly. However, Stones on paper does have some of those things we talked about that Guardiola likes, the ability to play the ball out from the back. It's one of those things where you've got to look at it from a point of view. I always find this thing as well, boys. I don't know about you, but it's a case of, well, we've been tracking him for the last 2 or 3 years. We better sign him because we've been tracking him for the last 2 or 3 years. Not necessarily because they've made the right decision or that they've got the right. They generally feel they've got the right player, but it's more of a case of, well, I suppose we better had signed him now, you know. And again, Liverpool have been guilty of that so many times, ridiculously amount of times.
Rob, do you know what infuriates me about this whole situation with John Stones, right? I'll cast your mind back to we had Rowan Ricketts on our show some time ago, and he said, he hit the nail right on the head about this. He goes, Dele Alli came through MK Dons. He spent a year in the first team. He then joined Spurs, right? 4 months after playing for Spurs, he got called up to the England team, and he said, well, in that 4 months, did he improve that much as a player for him to get called up? So that's basically saying that about, we do have players in the Championship that are good enough to play for the national team, but why aren't we picking them, right? So players like John Stones, who breaks through at Everton, and let's be honest, he had an awful season last year, right?
Yeah,
Everyone
he really did. He had a stinker.
So I'm not just pointing the finger at him.
Yeah.
But I'm sitting there thinking, hang about, if he's worth £50 million, then how much is someone like Michael Keane worth at Burnley, who's done it week in, week out, done in the Championship, a very tough grueling league? Yeah. And I'm thinking, well, you know, is he really a £50 million player? I don't see it. That's just my opinion.
No, I'm with you.
People rant and rave about him, and I don't know.
You can certainly make the argument that form is temporary and class is permanent. But I still don't generally. We've had this discussion before, Stel. I don't think he's kicked on enough to justify a £50 million
same with Barkley, though.
transfer.
Same with Barkley.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree with you. We've had this discussion again. There are, and I think that is the problem that Everton have, is they have this very well-respected, shall we say, group of players that have come through the club, and they're very much admired and respected inside of, you know, Liverpool, Merseyside, and Chester. But in terms of their consistency, in terms of their ability to perform week in, week out, 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10, they have not done it. It's much like your man Leighton Baines, solid player, but nobody's pulled the trigger on him. But you know, nobody ever went out and bought Leighton Baines out of Everton, and they could have done. Nobody did, and I think there's quite a few players at Everton like that. The Barkley question, but Seamus Coleman.
Is it not indicative of English players generally?
Questionable, yeah. I mean, you can always...
Can of worms there, can of worms.
You know, the English premium, isn't it? Hashtag English premium.
Yeah.
And Johnson for £11 million.
Correct. You know, it's a value for money thing, and I think that a lot of people look back at, you know, I think there's just segueing into Arsenal. There's always this question that they don't have any English steel, do they? English steel in the old. I'm doing the quote fingers. English steel. But you know, it's a question like as a hypothetical. If Danny Drinkwater came on the market, I think if he'd have gone to somewhere like Everton instead of Leicester when he left the United, I think we'd be looking at a different player, and probably not one that's kicked on as well as he has at Leicester. I think you could.
I agree, 100%.
You know, I think that's one of these things where you've got to appreciate that there are going to be players who are going to mature a bit later, and that's happening more and more in football.
And also, it has a lot to do with managers improving players.
Correct.
You look at Martinez and then you look at Claudio. There's a massive difference in the way they play. Yeah. But in my opinion, I've always rated Claudio as a much better manager than Roberto Martinez.
I think a lot of people would agree with you, and I think that's one of these things that you've got to take into account. Can these players kick on under Ronald Koeman? Because potentially they should do. Yep. Koeman has a
Back in the can and they were
a great reputation, well deserved in improving players.
Yeah.
You know.
And to be honest with you, Koeman was my. I told Stel this last time.
Yeah.
Koeman was my first choice in replacing Arsene Wenger. I was gutted when Everton went for him.
Well, listen, don't be surprised if he doesn't hang around at Everton for long. He hasn't hung around anywhere for long.
Yeah.
So if Arsenal came along and said, "You're the man for us," he'll be gone. I think if the Arsenal job came along and Arsenal were interested in him sometime in the next 2 or 3 years' time, I don't think it would be a problem getting him at all.
Yeah.
Do you know what the thing is with Koeman, right? He went to Southampton and he was working with the bare bones. Players had left like Luke Shaw, Schneiderlin, Wanyama's obviously gone now. But in the past, all these other players are gone, like Nathaniel Klein,
Lallana,
all those players are gone. Exactly. But he managed to rebuild. But I'm looking at this Everton squad. I'm thinking, well, what can he do with them? And I think a lot of players will improve under him. But the thing is, when I see the likes of Mirallas, attitude problem, Lukaku, attitude problem, Barkley can't seem to accept more than one instruction, Jagielka, Moyes' love child. I just look at these players, I'm thinking,
I'm with you.
Can Koeman improve them that much? Personally, I mean, I've still got my bet with William Hill that Koeman is going to be the next Arsenal manager. That's 50-1 about 6 months ago.
It's definitely worth a five at that,
I've still
as far as
got
I'm concerned. But
do you know what I mean? So
yeah, I agree with you.
I can see him leaving. I can see him doing it. I can see him doing sod this.
I'm with you there. I mean, the Southampton are a side that don't get the credit they deserve. They are really, really well run off the field.
Yeah.
And I think that when he segued into the Southampton job after Pochettino, there were a lot of players that they probably identified and they just bought them anyway. And Koeman went, yeah, okay, actually these lads look pretty good. Yeah, let's sign them. Let's sign them. Compare that with Everton, who are basically, for want of a better word, an absolute mess. They are a mess off the field, on the field, in the boardroom. The whole thing isn't just an abject. Honestly, if it was a horse, you'd shoot it. The ground's a mess. They have a good academy with a lot of good young lads coming through, and they have Everton boys that run that academy. Ferguson. And your man that took over for a couple of games, didn't he? What was he called? David Unsworth.
Right.
They always have lads coming through at Everton. But this is where I'm hopeful Koeman will just turn around and go, right, I don't rate you, Lukaku. You're being a bit of a bell end. We're going to bring this lad in from the academy. It's kind of, I think of it, and I hope for Everton that he will be able to work with young players and bring them through, and they'll do as they're bloody well told, for want of a better phrase, rather than Lukaku having a bit of a sulk, rather than, Jesus Christ, you think about the money that they've wasted on someone like Gareth Barry at 35, when you could have gone out and bought 3 players for the squad on a free, on the money that he's earning, who are somebody like, I'll give you an example, Joe Ledley. Joe Ledley's a good player at Crystal Palace. He would have done everything that Gareth Barry's done at Everton, cheaper, younger, more reliable body-wise, and he has a wicked beard. And I like beards, but that's just like one little example. They've really mismanaged where they've spent money at Everton, and there's a lot of players at Everton that are earning a lot of money, and they're not justifying it. So hopefully Koeman will be able to get something out of them. They might be better off without Stones. They do have the lad, I can't think of his name, but they have a young lad coming through at Everton, a central defender, and I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but he looks absolutely mint. I've watched him a couple of times for the under-21s, England under-21s. He's had a couple of games for them.
17.
I can't think of his name off the top of my head.
Mixed race guy.
I'll get back to you. Talk amongst yourself while I Google him.
Okay, cool. Well, in that case, I'll tell you what, Stel, I'll ask you this question as I completely didn't ask you this question last time. Who do you think, honestly, don't let the fact that you're on this channel throw you, will make the top 4? Given the managers, given the talent.
Wow.
Who's the top 4 for you?
Wow. Okay. Well, in any order or?
As things stand. In order, yeah.
In order. Oh,
In
Jesus,
order.
now you're asking a question. Right. You cannot rule out the teams that don't have European football. Personally, I think Chelsea are going to win the title. That's my honest opinion.
Okay.
I think Conte's got a group of players there that we've seen what they can do. They won the title a couple of seasons.
Quickly?
Sorry?
You think Conte will adapt quickly?
I think he will, yeah. I think he will. Because he plays at a high intensity and he knows what it's all about. He knows these players are going to work. You know, he's going to make them work anyway. I think Chelsea will win the title. I think United will come second.
Okay.
Again, I don't think Mourinho will take the Europa League too serious, especially with it being Thursday, Sunday.
I agree.
Third place, I'm going to say Liverpool. Liverpool. And fourth is going to be Arsenal because they always win the Wenger Trophy, the Wenger Invitational.
You're riling up Arsenal fans now.
Listen, listen. The way I see it, fair enough. Arsenal haven't spent much yet. Yet's been the operative word, and I said this on your show last week.
Yeah.
He's going to get the checkbook out, man. I'm telling you, he's going to shock you lot.
I agree.
I agree. Everyone is dumping on Wenger from a great height, but the guy knows what he's doing. He's waiting to see what the market is saying. Okay, and if he wants Lacazette, he'll get Lacazette.
Yeah,
he will. So that's my top four.
I agree with you.
Sorry,
in
Spurs.
Terms of, I'll tell you what. The lad they've signed from Blackburn, Rob. Oh God, I can't think of his name.
For Bolton, Rob Holding.
Yeah. Now I've watched him a couple of times. I do watch quite a bit of Championship football because I'm basically sadistic. And I've watched him a couple of times, and he's actually a good player as an example of what you've been talking about earlier with Michael Clark stuff. That is a guy that's gone and done it in the Championship, in a struggling team, worked under a good coach who has improved him in your man, what's he called that was at Villa? Oh, what's his bloody...
Paul Lambert.
Yeah, he's improved. He's improved him. Now Lambert's a guy that you go, what? He's a bit of a fraud, but he is a guy who has. There is physical evidence that he has improved players.
Ask Leon Knight what he thinks. Because Leon Knight will tell you that Lambert at Wickham was an authoritarian man. He didn't mess about.
So. He
commanded respect.
Supposedly he's good with young players, so it wouldn't surprise me if he has improved them.
You know,
But didn't Holden come from Bolton though?
Was it Bolton? No, I thought it was Blackburn. It was Blackburn.
Bolton, 100% Bolton.
For sure. Oh, I've got it all wrong again, haven't I?
I just assumed.
Yeah, the fella that left Blackburn went to Newcastle.
That's the lad from the Scottish lad. Yeah, okay, I've got my players mixed up because I'm a bumper clerk. Sorry, boys. I've definitely watched Harding play because obviously when Preston play against Bolton, that's a big game for me and my old man.
I don't know who this Harding guy is.
Honestly, I've definitely seen him 2 or 3 times. He's got something about him, and I hope that he will kick on. He's got a bit of physicality about him. I agree with Stel, and curiously, we were talking about this on Twitter the other day, weren't we? I genuinely believe that once Pogba goes to United, you're going to see 6 or 7 big transfers happen.
Yeah, people are saying that it's going to be a domino effect.
And I agree with Stel that I imagine that Arsene, being the last-minute Larry that he is, will probably move for 2 or 3 players inside the last week, 10 days of the transfer season. He want to have a look at what he's got.
He's either got a few targets or he's going to panic buy. That's the two. And I can't see him panic buying. Listen, at the end of the day, the amount of money that's coming to the Premier League now is insane.
Agreed.
Right? Every team is going to spend big. Forget now you see Spurs spending £8 million in there. Trust me, if there's a £20 million player that they want, they're going to go for it. Same with Leicester. Same with Sunderland. Once they get a new manager, Stoke. They spent £30 million on Joe Allen 10 years ago. £13 million bought the club.
I will say I do agree with this. When Watford can reject nearly 40 million for fucking Agallo,
do you know what I mean?
That's true. Yeah.
You know they're expecting money.
It's one of those things, guys, where this new TV deal and probably the TV deal before it have essentially created like a Premiership middle class, and obviously they're not going to spend money like City or Chelsea are, but they can hold their own and they can hold on to players. That's for sure. You know, and I think the thing with Arsenal is we always look at who they want and what they need. Like Xhaka for me is an absolutely great player. I think he's a great signing for them. And I expect him, because of the kind of player that we know he is, and again, we've seen him from German football, he's got the things that Wenger's looking for. You look at him, and I looked at him, and I went, yeah, he's a Wenger player. He's the kind of player that Wenger likes. The issue that I have is he needs somebody else alongside him, just like that. And it certainly isn't Luke Wiltshire.
Or Jack.
Yeah.
His brother Jack.
You know, but they need somebody that complements Xhaka there. And
see, my ideal would have been Kante. And I know I was being greedy, but when he was being linked with us, I was like, oh, please, let's get him as well.
Well, the lad that's gone to Leicester to replace Kante, again, I think would have been a good complement to Xhaka. Is it Mendy?
Yeah, Mendy.
Yeah, he would complement him.
Hang about.
But of course they've got your man, haven't they? Hang on a minute.
Slow down. What's happened to Coquelin? Because beginning of last season, he was the man. He was the holding midfielder. He was the guy that broke up play. I mean, you didn't need any outfield players. You wanted the goalkeeper. You got your goalkeeper. That's your final piece of the jigsaw. But now, what's happened to Coquelin? Then you brought El Neni to do the same thing. And now you want Kante? Come on, man. How many midfielders do you want?
I'll explain myself. Let me explain. Right? This might not be a popular opinion, but I think a few smart people will agree with this. Coquelin is a very, very good player. You're not telling me.
That's debatable. I wouldn't say he's very good, but you know.
I think he is. I think he's a good player, but I don't think he's an intelligent player.
There you go.
Correct.
And that's what makes him a very good player.
Yes, you've nailed it.
That's what makes him a very good player, and he's hot-headed as well.
I think where Kante is he does everything Coquelin does, but is a little bit better at everything else. And I actually think what will end up happening is he'll probably end up playing Xhaka and El Nene there, because I think El Nene is a much more intelligent player than a Coquelin.
So who wins the ball?
I think El Nene can do the job.
Really? You think okay, fair enough.
I think El Nene can do the job.
I admire your ambition. I admire your ambition.
I hear what you guys are saying, because I think you do. I definitely understand. You need like someone who can break apart the play, and then someone like a Xhaka who can collect the ball deep and then distribute it. I get that.
See, Chris, that's the thing. If you're going to play them two in the middle of the park, you need a destroyer, because they're not. I don't think they're solid enough. No. They're good. Their distribution is good. Don't get me wrong. They got an eye for a pass. Don't get me wrong. But you need someone to win the ball, and you're going to have that conundrum again. Oh, well, we need the defensive midfielder, and you've got Coquelin there, and he's like, well, what do I have to do to get in this team? You know, so
I agree. That again, we come back to what we were saying about Stones and company on paper complement each other. I'm not sure if Xhaka and anybody currently in the Arsenal squad complement each other.
I will say
Flamini's gone, hasn't he? Is he still on the books?
Is he gone?
Flamini. Oh gosh. Yeah.
Flamini can buy the Premier League. You know that. Have you seen how much money the guy's
man.
I'm sure he can.
More money than God, that boy.
The guy's a billionaire, man.
He's got a lot of money. I won't talk too much.
He's invested in some kind of what's it called? Like
Ponzi scheme.
Like the next energy resource or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And he's billions, man. This is ridiculous. He could buy the Premier League, man. Oh.
Here's the thing. I mean, going back to your point, I would argue
Captain Planet.
Probably Arsenal, when Arsenal was having their best kind of period was when Coquelin and Santi Cazorla were playing in the middle. Now, I'm not suggesting Santi should play as the destroyer, but what I'm essentially saying is someone who is more accomplished in that position, i.e. a Xhaka, in Santi's role, and then Coquelin playing beside him, I think that could potentially work. And who knows? He's still young enough.
Potentially it could work, but I have my reservations. I can't really put my finger on it. I just worry. I look at what Arsenal have done. Like, they only played their first pre-season game on Friday night. I don't think that the two of them playing together will have enough time. I think that they might be able to forge a partnership sometime after Christmas, when they've been playing together for about 4 or 5 months. But this is Arsenal. This is the Premiership. You need to hit the ground running. And I think that's probably where you're potentially gonna come unstuck, and that is why I agree with Stel that you'll probably see 2 or 3 signings in the last week of the transfer window.
Well, they'll have to, because people like Ozil and Sanchez, they're not going to hang around for this.
Of course.
You know, they're not going to hang around for this. And listen, with all due respect, as big as a club Arsenal are, when they see the likes of Pogba joining United, when they see Higuain going to Juventus, and let's be honest, look, Juventus, as fantastic as a team they are, right? It's a one-team league. They're dominating the Serie A.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Right? So where's the incentive? These guys probably thinking about, if Higuain's going there and Pogba's going there, what about us? What about us? United aren't even in the Champions League. He's probably sitting there thinking, United aren't even in the Champions League, and yet they're still attracting these big names. And us, we're sitting here and we're bringing in some kid from Bolton, some guy in Japan that no one's ever heard of, and you still got the postman Sonogo there. So what?
And this is the thing that I think frustrates a lot of Arsenal fans. Yes, we have a lot of very bipolar-like, ridiculous fans. There's no doubt about it. But if there's one thing that I think all of us agree on is that, all right, yes, fine, we demand a lot. But you know what? So do the players that are there. The supposed world-class players that are there are thinking to themselves, just like you said, well, hold on a minute. So no one's choosing Arsenal as their team to come to. We've had so many players supposedly reject us. Meanwhile, Ozil and Sanchez are probably sat there thinking, well, blimey, I need to get the heck out of it. I'm not going to commit my future to this club.
You know, there was a great article in the Guardian, and I can't remember the name of the journalist who it was, but he vividly recalled this situation where Sanchez was announced as signing for Arsenal, and it was the day that the new kit was announced, and he said he just looked at the players, and they were all there playing on their mobile phones. They were all talking to one another. They were absolutely buzzing that they'd signed Sanchez, and quite rightly too, top-class player. If you can't, I'm not saying you need a gigantic signing like that every summer, but you definitely need something that will keep the rest of your team inspired. Is Xhaka going to do that? I hope so. They certainly could do with something else. There's nothing that somebody like Sanchez wants more than to win. You can see that Sanchez is a natural winner, and if he starts to doubt or question that that's going to happen at Arsenal,
he'll go
off ski. He will be off ski.
Gents, 3 words for you: statement of intent.
Correct, sir.
Not just for the rest of the team to say, right, we're going to bring in this player to win us this, but for the fans as well. Arsenal are spending, how much are your season tickets now, Chris? $2 grand? $3 grand? An arm and a leg?
The cheapest one is $1,200.
Jesus Christ! You get a free.
And is that just league games, or do you get cup games as well?
To be honest, I think you get select cup games. You don't get.
Oh mate, you better be sitting in gold seats for that money. I tell you.
It's crazy.
You know, this is the thing. I agree with Stel. You know, there is. You know, I studied at University of Hertfordshire, which by and large is unilaterally Spurs or Arsenal, and that's it.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of Arsenal friends, and I've got a lot of respect for them. But there has been a cultivated attitude amongst Arsenal supporters where they fold their arms, sit in their seat, and say, "Impress me."
Yeah.
And that is all of Wenger's making. That is all of Wenger's making.
I couldn't agree more. I could not agree more.
So ambition breeds ambition. You need something more than just. I think we all agree that they need something more than Xhaka. I think we all went Czech, great signing. Has Czech gone past his best?
I think so.
Yeah,
probably.
I think so.
Probably. Although I also think that where we've had some goalies like De Gea that have really kicked the game on in terms of how we perceive a top quality goalkeeper.
But I think it goes back to the beginning of this. Is Czech your ball playing goalkeeper? I don't think so. And even I would admit that.
No.
I think as great of a keeper as he has been, I don't necessarily see him being that sweeper keeper type.
No. But I don't think do Arsenal necessarily want to play that way? I don't really know if they do. It's I know that they've got some, Mertesacker's got a bit of a knee injury from that friendly the other night.
Yeah, I mean,
but it could. Am I right in reading this correct that he could be up for anything from 5 to 6 months?
Yep. And
so why are they not even linked with the guy from
Napoli, right?
They're not even linked with the guy from Napoli, are they?
Oh my gosh!
Screaming for him.
The guy.
Koulibaly, is that his name?
Yeah.
People who listen to this video will know how much I've been moaning about that. That for me is my number one. Forget strikers, my number one target. I'd have that Napoli guy in a heartbeat. And apparently Chelsea, it's come out tonight that Chelsea had bid 38 million for him. And it's just like, why are we allowing Chelsea, who don't even have Champions League football, to get all these damn players? I don't understand.
It's funny as well. Like,
look at the coach.
Look at the coach. Yeah, who knows exactly who it is, doesn't it? There's always that element as well that this guy is clearly, from the things that we've read, this guy's clearly looking for a big move in terms of wages. He's not happy at Napoli because of the amount of wedge that he's getting on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
And he knows exactly where the money is. It's here or it's in China, and he ain't going to China.
Know what?
Apparently he's only been offered 68 grand. I say only.
Yeah.
He's only been offered 68 grand.
Chris, listen to what you said before. You said they don't have Champions League football, but look at that team, right? Every one of those players that obviously that were there, not at the beginning of last season, but obviously the players that were in that title-winning team have won the league title. Hazard's won the league title. John Terry's won European Cups, right? As I said, they're looking at this Arsenal team, and which take Peter Cech out the team, and Alexis Sanchez and Ozil, who won titles away from Arsenal, and Danny Welbeck. Who else has won titles, league titles?
Yeah.
Who? And this is my point. As good as Arsenal are, they don't. Like I said, you take away these players that have got that experience, that won titles. Who else has won titles there? They don't have the experience. Yeah, fair enough. You can say the same about the Leicester players. That's a freak season.
I was going to say, I think it means a lot, but Leicester proved it's not everything. I think it is just. You're right. I think it is a mentality issue. But this is why I believe that it starts from the manager. I
agree with you guys, and I think this is the issue: is that it's a culture thing.
Yeah, that's exactly what
Wenger has allowed. As Stel said, fourth place is a trophy. And I've spoken to Stel about this at great length. In my opinion, it's absolutely abhorrent that this attitude of finishing 17th and or 16th and just avoiding relegation is celebrated as a trophy by some clubs. And I think that is the problem. The winning mentality from what Wenger brought in and inherited with some of his players it's absolutely bereft. And I think Arsenal a lot of the time look to Sanchez very similar to the way that Liverpool look to people like Gerrard, as if to say, well, if Gerrard can't dig us out, then we're absolutely fucked.
Also, the other thing, what you got to bear in mind is that, this is my honest opinion, Arsenal should turn around and say to their players, stop using social media. Because taking photographs in the dressing room after beating Leicester 2-1 was a disgrace, man. I couldn't believe it. Well, I could believe it, to be honest, because Arsenal, but you haven't won anything. You've just about beaten Leicester City. It didn't change anything at the end of the day, right? Yeah, fair enough. At the time, they probably thought that momentum was going to shift their way and the pendulum was going to swing their way. But at the end of the day, they hadn't won anything. The title wasn't done and dusted. There was still 2 months to go. Why are you taking photographs in the dressing room celebrating a win against Leicester City? Listen, doesn't make sense.
There is not a single Arsenal fan. We rarely agree about stuff. But there's not a single Arsenal fan that would disagree with what you just said.
Mate, I tell you, you should have seen my timeline after Danny Welbeck scored. You'd have thought the title was done and dusted and it was going to Arsenal. Trust me.
No. Yeah. What, like people were like retweeting this photo? Like what? Like what's going on?
Nah, mate. Honestly, the comments and listen. At the end of the day, you do have a minority that are very fickle and really don't have a clue about the sport. But at the end of the day, I can't believe it. I can't believe the club actually allowed them to do that. You know, I mean, Lucas Podolski is the biggest social media whore out there. Honestly, you know, he will take a dump and he will sit on the toilet seat taking a selfie. That's the kind of person
he puts Enrique to shame, doesn't he? He puts Enrique to shame.
Honestly, but
he really
again,
does.
Arsenal have like 4 million. The Arsenal Football Club have about 4 million Twitter followers. They have a social media team. Why don't they just turn around and say to the players, "Listen, right," or the players
let us do it.
Look, let us deal with it. You know, that's what we're paid for. You know, and to be honest, it's a distraction for these players. They go to training, they take a selfie. They go in the training room, they take a selfie. They're in their car signing autographs, they take a selfie. It's like, really, stop it, man. Really, it's embarrassing, honestly.
No, yeah, and it is, especially, it's one thing to do that pre-season, but it's another thing if you're right in the midst of it, and then you're taking these selfies, and then it usually follows with the following week, we mess up and we lose a game. And then, you should see Twitter when Arsenal lose a game.
Come on, Chris. Let's be honest. You can set your watch.
Of course.
By the early February Arsenal fuck up barometer shenanigans, whatever it is. You can literally set your clock to it and go, oh look, they've got an away game in Europe against one of the biggest sides in Europe.
Mm-hmm. And that's usually.
And they've also got Man United, and they've got Manchester City, and they've got the North London derby.
Yeah.
Or even if it's not them and you've got to play Stoke, you can literally set your clock by them having a giant shit on the fucking pitch every fucking year.
It irritates me. It irritates me because it's the preparation that counts. When you hear about boxers, who are preparing for fights, they will train for 8 weeks solid. You know, they'll ignore any social media. They'll go to the other side of the world and
become
live
a
in
hermit.
cave. Yeah, exactly. And this is the difference, man, because, as I said, you've got these talented footballers, and there's no doubt Arsenal got talented players. Players like Chamberlain and even Wilshire's a fantastic footballer, technically fantastic. But then it's the application, it's the behaviour, it's the mentality. I see Alexis Sanchez training like a beast, man, even when he's not. You know, he went to the Copa America last summer and he didn't play for the first 6 weeks of the Premier League, but he was training. Application is his dedication. But then when I see these players taking around 100 grand a week and then they take a selfie after losing 2-1 against, I don't know, MK Dons in the Carling Cup or whatever it is, like, are you serious? You're insulting the fans. You're insulting everyone that's involved in the club.
You're insulting the profession.
Exactly.
I'm with you all the way. There is, and again, honestly, the word we're looking for here, guys, is the culture inside of the club is wrong. It is not. I remember, and listen, I'm a huge advocate of Arsene Wenger. From the days when he first came into the club and he introduced something of a revolution inside English football. And I think all those things are to be respected. But you also have to take into account that he had Seaman, Adams, Bold, Lee Dixon, Winterburn. Right, they embraced it. They believed in it. I do not for 1 second think that the majority of the Arsenal team have embraced the culture that Wenger has tried to set out.
But don't forget, Rob, Wenger has embraced the English culture too much, and therein lies the problem. Because he's just turned around and said, right, fine, it is how it is. But that's not how it should be.
No.
That's not how it should be. He should stick to his morals and stick to everything that made him the manager that he is. Do you know what I mean? That's given him that reputation. Because I'm telling you, there are players in that team that aren't walking on hot coal for Arsenal, and there are players in that team that aren't working for the manager. I'm telling you this now.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying.
You know,
they are not embracing it.
And all the stick that Wenger got, fair enough, a lot of it is justified because of his tactical decisions and substitutions and team selection. Fine, I get it. But the thing is, at the end of the day, it's a two-way street, and the players aren't pulling their weight as far as I'm concerned. Gibbs isn't good enough for the club. Paulista isn't good enough for the club. I don't even think Koscielny is good enough for the club. If you want to win the title, these players ain't going to win you the title. It's your Sanchez's, it's your Ozils. Even your Danny Welbeck's will win you the title because he's got that experience. The rest of them, above average, if that.
But here's the thing, as flippant as it sounds, I don't think Wenger is at that point in his career and maybe his life where he feels like, well, why do I need to change? Why do I need to adapt? Why do I need to go back?
Well, he is French after all, Chris. You know, they're not known for it, are they?
Yeah, but that's because he's got comfortable, Chris. Because no one has put his job under threat. His feet are firmly under the table, and he ain't gonna go.
Have you seen some of the quotes that have come out recently that have pissed Arsenal fans off from that Ivan the idiot?
Well, yeah, that's exactly the point. Then that's exactly the point. That's exactly the point. You've got this guy that turns around and says Arsenal can compete for the title. What on what basis? Did Arsenal compete last season?
Oh, Arsenal had a good enough squad to win the title. How? What do you see that we're all not seeing? How do you justify that?
Listen.
But he's not a football man. He's not a football man,
honestly, yeah, you're right. He's not a football man. Listen, I've just said before, you can set the meltdown in February. You can set your clock by it. The fact that that's allowed to happen on at least 4 occasions in the last 4 years says something about what's wrong with this club.
And it's always after the Champions League exit. Have you noticed?
Exactly.
Every time they go out the Champions League, it's like their confidence just drops completely.
I'll tell you Arsenal's pattern. Generally, it tends to be we have a slow start, then we pick up through September, we get confidence in October, we start to falter in November, we pick up a little bit just before Christmas, somehow we find ourselves down near top after New Year, and in February, it all goes down a shithole.
Pretty much, and
that's literally our pattern.
Pretty much.
We finish April and May strong, and then Wenger starts saying, "Oh well, we went on an unbeaten run for about 8 games. All right, cool. What about the 8 games before? What about the February before? What about the 3 months that Giroud didn't score one single fucking goal, and you're telling me he's world class? Shut up." It's just things like that just piss me off.
Let me ask you this: just coming back to transfers again, which is what we want to talk about. Do you think that somebody like is it Dubiata at Juve? Now that they've gone for Higuain,
do you mean Dybala?
Him as well? Yeah, that guy. Do you think that he would do the business at Arsenal? Do you think he's the kind of player that they might look to? Because I have a feeling he'll be available sometime.
Nah, man, he is the man at Juventus. Him and Higuain will be the men.
Do you reckon they're going to play?
I think they'll play them together.
They've got 4 decent strikers, and each one of them are very different in the way that they play. You've got Higuain, you've got Piaka, I believe his name is. You've got Dybala, and you've got Mandzukic.
I think Mandzukic. Don't let Mandzukic go.
See, Mandzukic would do well at Arsenal, but he's very similar to Giroud. And he's another one that needs more than 2 or 3 chances to score. But I think Juve are happy with that 4 they've got up front, man. They're building a very solid team. And don't forget Dybala, he's basically the next Carlos Tevez they're grooming him to be.
Again, you can see why I would imagine somebody like Arsenal would like him. Doesn't mean necessarily they're going to get him. And I think obviously they seem to have their heart set on Lacazette.
Arsenal fans, what Arsenal do is another question.
I think
Arsenal fans would love Lacazette in a heartbeat.
But you know what? I think you're going to sell before you buy. That's what I think. I think Walcott's going to go.
Yeah. Where? Who's stupid enough to buy Theo Walcott?
Oh, there are teams out there, my friend.
I don't know. He's been linked with you lot a lot. He's been linked with Liverpool a lot because he's a Liverpool fan.
Yeah, but that's just journalists being wankers.
We're
not that stupid. Come on.
You got Mane, so you.
Yeah, we don't need him. We don't
got Mane.
We don't need him. And again, he's an example of a player who you would say wouldn't quite fit the mantra, the culture that we're now developing at Liverpool. We wouldn't
Everton
want
or
somebody like that.
That's his level. Everton or Southampton, that's his level.
I could see him going back to Southampton. I could, because he'd get.
Why not? Why not?
100% get games, and I think Pella's gone now, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
He's also under 5'8", which makes him a prime candidate for Stoke and their team of midgets.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
By the way, just a quick question: do you think Hull will potentially look at Giggs as a manager?
Listen, they can look at him all they want. They're still going to go down either way.
That would be a good step for him because they
can look at the they could look at the Mona Lisa. They could look at the Michelangelo's beautiful.
Giggs wants his first managerial role.
He's shit anyway. Let him go. Let him go.
You are the
I'd be
only
mad if I
United
felt.
fan I know that did not miss him going. The
Bro,
only
you know
one
I don't
know.
respect him.
It's
You know I
do you know
don't
what?
respect him.
Yeah, listen, it's the same. Like I have a similar thing as Stel with Gerrard at Liverpool. It's not that I don't respect him and appreciate what he's done and everything, but I see no sense in the grand scheme of things in just playing lip service and having him around the team and just like you've got to move on. You've got to move on. What does he offer? Giggs hasn't proved himself in any way, shape, or form to even be a remotely competent coach yet, let alone be ready for a managerial role.
Here's the irony about what I've been saying. I feel the exact same way about Henry. People have been crying about Henry, and I'm like, there's nothing he has said, even on his punditry show, that makes you think, oh, you know what, he'd be a good coach. Like nothing. So I don't understand why people are getting so upset about it.
Honestly, guys,
it's the romanticist, man. Honestly,
correct.
That's all it is. They've seen Guardiola, elevate himself and elevate a pretty decent Barcelona team. Which, let's be honest, he inherited a fantastic squad there. Yeah, fair enough. He had to do the groundwork in terms of motivating players and keeping them on side, and the tactical side, and the endless rondos that he keeps on doing, which pisses the shit out of me. But you know, he earned his corn. But what has Ryan Giggs done? He hasn't coached the under-21s. He hasn't coached the youth team. He hasn't been there for a long enough time to be coaching these players. So, what credentials has he got? He hasn't plied his trade at lower divisions. You know, someone like Gary Monk is a better manager. Someone like Eddie Howe is a better manager. Someone like, dare I say it, Neil Warnock is a better manager. It's true. So why bring Ryan Giggs? And what is Ryan Giggs going to do? What pull has Ryan Giggs got? Oh, we're going to go play for Ryan Giggs. Why? Okay, because he was a great player when he was a player. Okay, what about his coaching methods? What about his credentials as a manager? Let me think.
Exactly. Guys, honestly,
on the wall, I don't know.
Yeah, guys, we see this in rugby all the time. Whenever there's whenever there's a job available, people go, oh, well, why don't we make Johnny Wilkinson the next England manager? Based on fucking what? The fact that you could kick a ball really, really well and was a bit of a gimp.
So does that mean that Jeff Hurst should be the next England manager then?
Yeah, Trevor Booking should be brought back to oh God alive! Actually, think about it. Think back to when the first week that Hodgson went, Alan Shearer was mentioned. Yeah. Based on what?
Although he put himself forward more than anything. But yeah.
Jesus Christ! Alan Shearer, I just want to rabbit punch him so hard every time I see him on the telly. I'm just going to sit on the fence and say nothing of anything because I'm terrified I might upset somebody that I might play golf with once.
And look, hey, Chris, listen, if they're talking about Thierry Henry as coach, why don't they talk about Ian Wright as manager? Because Ian Wright has done more pundit work.
Well, he's more qualified, yeah. He's more. I wouldn't have him either, but he's more qualified.
But that's my point. That's my point. Yeah. This whole the romanticism of it all. It's nonsense. It's farcical. It's asinine. Why would you appoint someone based on their football history at the club? Luca Vialli is a perfect example. Fantastic footballer, absolute dog wank of a manager. It's not the guy's fault. It's just that he was thrown into the deep end.
I'll tell you what, I'd have Dennis before any of them because at least Dennis has been an assistant manager. And
but he doesn't fly though.
He doesn't fly. That's the only problem, and that's the only reason why ultimately I wouldn't have him.
And since Arsenal like to fly to away games like Norwich City, I don't even know why.
What's the problem?
Oh dear. Do you know what? It's funny. I don't know if you guys have seen it, and I don't know if you have access to it. But if you've got Amazon Prime, or you're able to liberate things from the internet that's in a naughty manner, I'd love you to watch All or Nothing, which is this documentary behind-the-scenes thing with oh God, what team was it? I can't remember the name of the team. But behind the scenes in American football, and they have a coach. By and large, they have a coach for every position. They have a huge team of people who look after them. They even have like beds at their facilities so that the lads can have a lie down after they've been training and they want to have a nap. Everything is catered for to the nth degree. Literally everything is catered for. And I look at silly things like the coaches that players come in on, like the actual coach, the club bus, and I think to myself, well, why haven't you got like a couple of beds in there? Do you really need to have a 54-seater coach? Why didn't you have them getting ready on the coach? Why haven't you got a TV system set up so you're watching, you're doing some last-minute analysis before the game, and you're able to get them out there ready? You know, all these little things. You think to yourself, I understand that lots of players like to just put their headphones on and get psyched up for the game, but there has to be an opportunity to try and do something different, to try and give you just that 1%, the marginal gains things that they talk about a lot in coaching at the moment. There must be something you can do. And I just think to myself, well, Arsenal have got on a plane to travel 80 miles. Was it 80 miles?
Something like that,
Yeah.
And I just think to myself, in the grand scheme of things, how does this benefit the players in any way, shape, or form? How?
It doesn't. It doesn't. Now, I know that Wenger likes his players to have a nap before they go to the ground and all that kind of stuff. But that's something that a lot of managers tend to do anyway. But what is the difference between flying a plane or being on a bus? Okay, fair enough, there's traffic and you're not going to get that kind of stuff in there, whatever, I understand. But as I said, it infuriates me because these players are being pandered. Like when England came back, right, from that horrible performance in the Euros, right? I remember it was a rainy day. I think it was Luton Airport. The plane landed, and then you see people holding umbrellas for the players to walk out of the airplane, and they walked them through the terminal with umbrellas. I'm like, really? What? They can't even hold their own stuff? Are they? It's like they're being treated like royalty, and as a result, they're behaving like spoiled brats.
Yeah.
But that's the way that the game has evolved. And again, I keep saying this: when you hear about an 18-year-old player signing his first contract at Chelsea, getting 20 grand a week, that's when you know there's a problem. And the powers that be won't do anything about it because they can't do anything about it. And I can go on and on and on about the way the grassroots football is suffering as a result of money, and the money is.
Well, we know to blame, don't we?
Well, we can blame the big wigs at the FA. We can blame Scudamore.
Howard Wilkinson.
Really?
Howard Wilkinson, when he left the Leeds and Sheffield Wednesday jobs, got a job at the FA. This is 94, 95, 96.
Lilleshall you're talking about. Did he when he goes?
Yeah, well, he was involved with Lilleshall as well. But he was the person at the FA that did away with the diktat that said that the young players, the apprentices, would clean boots and do upkeep around the stadium and things like this, right?
There you go.
So you can actually trace it back to Howard Wilkinson, which I think this happened in 97, 98. I can't be 100% sure. But you've seen the growth since then of the superstar footballer. And there's always been superstar footballers, but it's just reached just horrendous levels of pandering now. I couldn't agree with you more, Stel. I really couldn't. It's frightening.
Oh, well.
Frightening.
What are you going to do? Right, gents, listen, I need to make a move. But it's been a pleasure, Chris. Thank you very much. Robbie, good talking to you.
Always a pleasure talking to you, Stel. Always a pleasure, mate. Yeah.
Keep on with the good work, man.
I'll probably holler at you guys again when I'm next doing the show, but I guess
I'd love to come on again. I've really enjoyed it, guys. Honestly, it's been a really good crack, and I will try to remember players' names.
Hey,
and things.
don't stop because of me. I just
no. To be honest, I was gonna wrap it up as well. I got to get up early for work tomorrow, so you guys keeping me going.
I've got to get up at 4:30 to watch Liverpool beat Chelsea. Hopefully, in a meaningless game that means nothing.
Hey, anything that gets the confidence up, you never know. You never know. We struggled to lawns, for flip's sake, so and Twitter blew up when we did that.
Oh dear, flipping out, brilliant.
Anyway, guys,
cheers, man. Yeah, it's been great.
You have a good one, gents. All the best.
Cheers. Take it easy. Bye, guys.
Bye.